Hey, this is going to be a starter guide for Elden Ring, and this is mainly for folks who are not familiar with any Souls game. This is to help you get started uh, and hopefully make the early game really smooth and give you a good start for the rest of the game. So I'm gonna do a new game. Oh, wait, sorry. This is the thing. Apparently, I can only do so many saves. So let me delete one of these. Um, what should I delete though? Let me delete my level 1 run. Okay, so let's go to new game. Skipping through all cutscenes. And I'm picking astrologer because that's probably the most beginner friendly class. Could go with samurai as well, but that's more melee focused. Let's go with astrologer. Let's do type A. Let's put a name. Keepsake, always select the golden seed. You'll see why. Let me just pick a template that I already have. And let's do finish. Yes. Skipping the cutscene. Okay, pick up any shiny that you see in the game. So that's a rule. Anything that's glowing, pick up. All the drops are fixed in this game, except for stuff that drops off enemies. So if there's a piece of loot in the world, that's always going to be fixed for everyone. Okay, right here will be the very first boss. And don't worry about this. You're supposed to die to this boss, so yeah, just jump off a cliff here. Technically, you could beat him. Just take some patience. There'll be a cutscene. Skip it. And now you get the flasks. These are your healing flasks. There's actually two types. The Crimson Tears is for healing, and the blue one is for refilling your mana or MP. Now, right here is a tutorial. I'm not going to go through this right now, but it'll basically teach you all the basics. I'll go through the basics once we're out in the world, the controls and how to really set up all the shortcuts and stuff, because there's lots of cool things that you can do which the game doesn't tell you. So these are your graces, the checkpoints. So basically every time you die, you return to the last one that you touched. So as you can see, I can upgrade my flasks because I picked a golden seed at the beginning. So I'm going to use the golden seed and upgrade my flask. So what this does is gives me one more additional flask. And what I can also do is allocate my flasks. So right now I have a total of 5, and 4 are in healing. One is in MP. But what I'll do is put 3 in healing and 2 in MP because we are playing a caster build, so we really need the mana. Okay. Look at these items again, not important for now. So with the magic class, you actually start. So with the astrology, you actually start with a staff and a short sword. So we're mostly going to be using the staff, right? And you also start with the small wooden shield, which is completely useless. Unless you're parrying attacks, you actually don't need a shield. Because these small shields actually don't do anything in terms of protection. So as you can see, the negation here, the physical damage negation is 70%, which means it will only block like 70% of damage that's coming incoming, which means you'll still take hits even while blocking. So there's no point. The only time you would actually use a shield for blocking is when the shield has 100% physical block. That's when you'll actually see some benefits. But for now, what I'll do is just remove this. I can press X to remove the shield so that it doesn't get in the way. It also reduces some of the weight that we're carrying. Rest is fine. Okay, so moving on, this will put us in the overworld. This is a starting area, Limgrave, and touch this grace so that we have a checkpoint unlocked here. There's an NPC there, don't attack him. Anyone that you cannot target or anyone who is not immediately hostile to you are people you can talk to. I'll just skip through this dialogue. Basically, just listen to what he says. He just gives you a bit of direction where to go. So he tells you that wherever the grace thing is, these rays are pointing, is where you need to go. So right now you can see that's where it is going. I'm not going to go too much into the story and the lore and stuff, but there's lots to discover. This is just to get you started on the gameplay side, make a quick start, get all the important items first. So yeah, okay, yeah, this part. Okay, right there you see an enemy, the knight on the horse. So yeah, just ignore him. He's a boss. You could fight him, but more than likely he'll kill you. So that's like your first lesson. He's been put there deliberately to tell you that, hey, you're not supposed to fight every enemy in the field. If something is too difficult, you just basically run past it. Just avoid it, keep moving. And you can always come back and defeat everything later once you're more powerful and stuff. Okay, pick up these stones here, and this church is basically your first safe haven of sorts. So there is this NPC here who's dressed like Santa Claus. He's actually a vendor. You can talk to him, find out more.
Let's say you should buy a crafting essential. The kit costs up the import.
And he actually sells a crafting kit, which is somewhat important, not that important to be honest. It's only important in certain kind of builds. For now, we'll skip it. But if you want to like craft stuff, pick it up. It just costs like 300 runes. And speaking of runes is the currency in this game. It's also the experience. It's basically used for everything in the game, as you'll see. So here's how you approach combat with the astrologer. Okay, so you see an enemy. That's an enemy. Press the right stick to lock onto enemies, right? And then press RB. Since I have the staff in my right hand, I press RB to attack with it, right? So this will cast spells, and you can see the spell on top, which is Glintstone Pebble, and I'm looking at the UI there at the bottom, right? So if it disappears on you, right? Sometimes it disappears because that's the way they have designed it. While you're exploring, they don't want it to get in the way. If it disappears, just press Y to bring it back. Okay, loot the corpse. Enemies will drop stuff. Keep moving. There's another enemy here. I'll also kill him with a few spells. Pretty easy if you're starting with this class. There's really no risk as such. A lot of the early enemies are very slow. You'll kill them before they even get to you, right? Really simple. Okay, so as you're exploring, you'll come across like different things on the map, right? Like caves and dungeons and catacombs. So there's a cave right there. It's a short dungeon. We're not going to do it right now, but keep an eye out for these things. And later on, I'll tell you like how to spot, how to find out where important points of interest are. So for now, we'll just keep moving along the path. Okay, and keep moving. Another enemy there. Okay, maybe this is a good chance to show you how melee works. So I also have the short sword equipped, right? Right now I have the staff in my hand, but if I press left on the D-pad, right on the D-pad, I'll switch to the other weapon that I have equipped. So as you can see right here, if I go back to the equipment screen, you have these 3 slots here for weapons, for gear basically, and 3 slots here. So these 3 are your right hand stuff. So anything that you have here will go into your right hand and you can switch using the D-pad. Anything that you have here will go into your left hand and you can switch between that in the D-pad. So for example, I could do something like this. I could take this out. I can put the sword in my right hand. I can put the staff in my left hand. And now what I can do is attack with my, oh sorry, that's my sword. Yeah, select my sword, attack like this, and then I cast spells with the left hand. Okay, pretty simple stuff. It's a bit different from a lot of games, but this is how From Software has always been doing it with these Souls games. So anybody who's played these games knows that this is how they've always implemented their controls. So again, RB attack. You can also use RT for heavier attack. Okay, there's lots of cool things you can do, but these are like really the basics. And there's combos and there's special abilities and stuff later on, which we'll get into. Okay, there is another grace. Okay, right there is an enemy camp, and there are some important items there. But we're not going to mess around with it yet because our first checkpoint is a bit further ahead. So instead of that, just rest here. And there's also another reason why I recommend resting here. So when you rest here is when a cutscene will play, and you will meet Melena again.
Have you heard of the Finger Maiden? They serve, but I can
Just listen to
to
her
to the foot of
and hit accept here.
Summon me. I bequeath.
Then she will give you a whistle to call your mount or your horse.
Use it. It will summon a torrent. Treat him with
Okay. Okay, now comes a very important tip. So you can actually call the horse like this, right? You can actually put the whistle. Okay, like I said, there are slots here for weapons. There are also other slots down here. And then these are your armor slots. And over here are your arrow and bolt slots, which again, right now is not that important because we're not carrying a bow. But down here are your item shortcuts. So if I press down on the D-pad, you can switch between them. You see I'm pressing down on the D-pad and I can switch between the flasks. To use the flasks, press X. Okay, whichever flask. So I can use the health flask, I can use my mana flask, and so on. And if I have any other item equipped here, like for example, now what I'll do is I'll put the horse whistle here. Okay, and I'll switch to the horse whistle. I'll press X. This will call the horse. However, this is not how I would recommend you do it. What happens eventually is because if you have too many items here, switching them between them becomes a pain in the midst of combat. So what I typically do is I remove a lot of the items from here and I only really keep the health and one more item here, a health flask and one more item. And what I do is if you hold Y, there's another shortcut menu that comes up which you can select using D-pad. Then what I do is I go to your press start again, go to the menu screen, and over here you can actually change what your quick pouch item shortcuts are. So just remove this one that's already there, the memory of grace. You don't need this. Put the horse whistle here and also put the mana flask here, and you'll see this works a lot better than switching it with the D-pad and then using the items. So to dismount the horse, just press left trigger left trigger LS, just press that and it'll basically dismount and the horse will disappear. I'll rest again, so this will refill all my flasks, right? And now see what I'm doing. I will hold Y and I'll press down on the D-pad to summon the horse. This is so much quicker and much more intuitive than fumbling around with the D-pad, especially if you're in combat and getting chased around. Right now, what I'll do is give this camp a wide berth and not aggro any enemies here. I want to do something very specific to give you an important item at the start. I'll go to this grace here, and technically this is where we're supposed to go, through this gate, because you see the grace thingies are pointing, the rays are pointing inside. However, don't follow that, because that will just take you on the critical path and basically put you right into some tough fights in the beginning, which you don't want, because this game is very open. You don't want to just stick to the critical path. You can get a lot stronger by exploring and then going to the critical path, and then basically having a much easier time at it. I'll rest here in the meantime. You could talk to Melina. There's like always lore stuff coming out and stuff, but yeah, for now I'm skipping it. Summon the horse, ride around a bit, and what I really want to do is go back to the church now. The church that we rested in the beginning at, right? The Santa Claus one. So I could ride through and go there, but you can also fast travel in this game. And fast travel is free, it can be done anytime, and it's a complete lifesaver. So unless you are like under attack or in the middle of enemies, you can fast travel anytime. Sometimes you cannot fast travel if you're inside a dungeon or something, but for the most part you can. So I'll just go back. Oh, and I just realized that I did not touch the grace in the church, so it's fine. I'll just ride past and then I'll go there. And this is again a good opportunity to show you that sometimes you don't this it's not worth fighting anything. So sometimes people will enemies will chase you, just ride past. Eventually they'll lose aggro and keep riding. So this is how you basically explore a bunch of things without really risking yourself. So I'll touch this grace. I should have done that in the beginning, but yeah, it's fine. I'll rest now. So when you rest here, what I really wanted to do was rest somewhere else and come back. So I'll just go back to one of the places that I rested at. Okay, I'll rest, come back to the church. Yeah, this is what we wanted. This NPC right here. She shows up after you rested a couple of times and summoned a horse. She can be missed here, which is why it's important to talk to her here. And it's not a big loss if you miss her, but I'll show you why. Talking to her.
I'd heard tend upon look at talk, I thou art possessed to call forth the
So you just say, I can call the spectral steed.
I was in torrents.
And then she gives you a spirit calling bell and the lone wolf ashes. Now these are very important items, especially for a beginner. And then talk to her again and she'll disappear. Okay, so she is kind of missable. If you progress too far from here in the story, then she won't show up here. Although you can get the summoning bell later on, uh, it is a really good idea to get it right here at the start. Now, what I'm going to do is, first of all, go back to this shortcut thingies, and I will put the wolf ashes that we just got in one of the shortcuts, right? Just put here. You could technically put these here as well in these shortcuts, but it is better to put them on the hold Y D-pad menu. Okay, as you can see, they're grayed out right now, and I'll show you what that means in a bit. Now I won't ride past everything. I will just try and fast travel to the grace that we rested. Now is when we will do the do that enemy camp here. Okay, so just want to move a bit further. Now, as you can see, this enemy camp is like, yeah, it's pretty crowded. Like lots of enemies in here, including one knight who is, well, I wouldn't say he's a mini boss, but he is that one over there with the big shield. He's a bit more tougher and tankier than the others. So you want to be a bit careful about how you approach these things, right? So you could pick out enemies like this, one by one, aggro them. But the cool thing is, now that we have the wolf ashes, if you look at the left side of the screen, you'll see this icon that has come up, which looks like a magical door, right? So these are areas where you can actually summon your ashes. So I'll just quickly get rid of this guy and then I'll show you what I mean. Okay. So I hold Y. Oh, and summoning actually takes up mana. So I'll use a mana flask. So now I ring the bell And you see, I have these 3 really awesome wolves to help me out. And trust me, this comes in very handy because they will take aggro, they will attack enemies, they'll distract them while you're free to cast spells and attack and stuff. So let's actually try and kill one enemy using melee. Huh? And this is a good opportunity to show you backstabs. So you see this enemy is not aggro. So I can like creep up behind him and I can press RB once to do a backstab. And you see my wolves have already engaged the other wolf here. And they managed to kill him too. Right? So see, relatively safe here with the wolves, with the ranged attacks. We're pretty much out of trouble. Now down here is an important item for crafting and upgrades later on. This here is you get an Ash of War. Ignore it for now, but the whetstone knife is what helps you basically uh, change some of the affinities on gear. But anyway, that's not important right now. It's kind of a advanced mechanic and nothing to worry about at the start. So I'll just quickly try and get rid of this knight here. So as you can see, magic is pretty powerful in the sense that it does huge chunks of damage and you can stay out of trouble. Right now he's blocking my spells. It is fine. Also use B to dodge attacks. I can also creep up behind him, try to do a backstab like this. Pretty easy, huh? Take this guy out. Okay. Right. And then I will pick up this item over here, which is a map fragment. And quickly get rid of this guy as well. Okay, now I picked up a map fragment. Now if I open the map using the menu button, you see now this is all filled up. You can see landmarks, points of interest and stuff. And just it's not like your typical open world game map where it's littered with icons and stuff. It is actually sort of like a real map that you have to navigate based on landmarks. So for example, now you see this area right here, this bridge looks like a point of interest, right? And you would want to check this out. So you can put a marker and start making your way towards it, and it'll always show your position on the map, which is cool. Or for example, you see something here, looks interesting, right? Because it looks different from the terrain. So you can always put a marker here and see what's over there, right? So that's generally how you should ideally navigate the map, although it's not like your typical open world game which will point you exactly where you need to go. And for example, here is a cave like thingy. Now these things are mines, and mines actually have very important upgrade materials in them, so it's always a good idea to go into mines and collect them. So same thing, I mean, as you get more familiar with how the map is, you will learn more about how to navigate it. Now, there are a few things that you might want to pick up here. For example, there is a weapon here. Unfortunately, I am running out of mana, but let's see what we can do. Now, I could have rested at the grace and refilled my mana, but or the flasks for that matter. But what happens is it respawns all of the enemies here. That's pretty much been the core mechanic of the Souls games, and it's true here as well. So you have to be a little careful about how you approach things. Sometimes what happens also is that when you kill enough enemies, it gives you some extra flasks to play around with, and that only happens in the open world, not in the dungeons part. So I just killed this guy with melee because I don't have any mana left. So did we pick up the weapon? No, I think we should. So if I open this here, pick up. And then you also see these messages on the ground, right? These are messages left by players, other players. So it is always a good idea to check these because this will always warn you about traps or tell you where loot is or hidden things are. And then there are these red blood stains as well. These are basically showing you how some other player died here. And these are, it can always give you a good idea about where there is a lethal drop or some enemy ambush coming up. So do check them out from time to time. Sometimes people like to troll, so I won't always trust messages. Sometimes people will write jump here and it's just an abyss and you end up dying. So yeah, use a bit of discretion there. And there's one enemy here that is because there's also another weapon here that I want to grab. Just quickly kill him. Try to do backstabs and attacks like that as much as possible. The AI is not very clever. If you creep past them, they won't even notice you. And I didn't tell you how to crouch. So crouch is the same button as the dismount. So left stick, press the left stick to crouch, and that way you can hide from enemies. Okay, so those are really the basics in terms of controls and how to really go about playing the game. Now let me tell you a bit about how to build your character and what all the different stats are and how to level up. So as I said in the beginning, runes are what is the main currency of this game. So right now you can see I have 1361 runes at the bottom right. And if I die somewhere, I'll drop my runes there. And then I have to go back and pick it up. Uh, but there's more to it. I will explain that part as well. But for now, let me show you leveling up. So if you go rest and hit level up, this is where you can select attributes to level up. Now there are 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 attributes in the game, or sorry, 8 attributes in the game, and not all of them are important, and it all depends on the build that you're playing. So technically, all of them are important, but depending on the build that you're playing, you will prefer some over the others. So, for example, on a caster build like this one, a stat like strength is more or less useless because we are not going to be using a lot of heavy melee weapons, right? Uh, so you can pretty much ignore the strength stat until say you come across a weapon that you want to use and that needs like extra strength to wield because every item has certain stats on it. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So if I open the menu, right, um, go to equipment, and if I select the short sword, and here if you look at the stats right here, it will show me the attribute scaling and the attributes required. So it says it needs 8 strength and 10 dexterity, which I have right now. If you can see here on the character sheet, I have 8 strength and I have 12 dexterity. So I can basically use the sword with no issues, use it to its full effect. But let's say if this needed 10 strength, then I wouldn't have been able to use it, right? So, for example, I think I can already show you on one of the weapons. So this sword that we picked up, the Lord Swan's Great Sword, this one has needs 16 strength, which I don't have. So it shows as red and it also shows as crossed out. So I cannot use this weapon effectively. Same goes for this flail because this needs 10 strength and 18 dexterity. Okay, and yeah, this is a bit tough to figure out until you are like familiar with these games because it's not very straightforward, but over time it will all make sense, right? So that's what is the attributes required, and now you have attribute scaling as well. So this says that it scales with strength and dex, so it has a D rating in strength and dex. So some weapons will have higher tiers here. So for example, some weapons will have B scaling or C scaling. What this means is the higher your dexterity or strength is. So for example, if this had an A in dexterity, yeah, if my dexterity was really high, like 40, 50, 60, then this weapon would do even more damage than it does right now. So it does extra damage on top of what the rating is the rating actually is. And the damage that you do with the weapon depends on two things. One is the level of the weapon. So over time, you can basically upgrade every weapon using some materials that you find in the world. So if I upgrade this, this will become short sword +1, +2, +3, +4, and so on, and then it'll keep doing more and more damage with each level. And then if I also upgrade my dexterity and strength alongside it, then it will do even more damage because it's getting some extra damage from scaling. Now, since you're just starting out, I will say that don't worry too much about attribute scaling in the beginning, because it only really matters once your weapon is really high level and has A scaling or B scaling or S scaling, and then you get the most benefits. Because as you upgrade a weapon, the scaling also sometimes goes up for certain weapons, right? So if I upgrade, say, so for example, this staff now, for example, it scales with intelligence. It has a C scaling in intelligence because it's a magic weapon and intelligence is a magic stat. So it scales with int. So if my int goes higher and higher, then yeah, you do end up doing more damage with it. So the scaling part will keep increasing, and the more I also upgrade this, eventually this scaling will also switch from C to B and from B to A. I don't know if this particular staff goes to A, but it depends. It depends on the weapon that you're using. Some weapons go right up to S scaling, which is the best possible scaling you can have on a weapon. But at the start, like I said, don't worry. Focus more on upgrading the weapon itself than looking at the scaling, because all of this can be tweaked later on. Now I'll rest again because I was showing you how to level up, and then I digressed more into stat scaling and stuff. But it's all useful. So you have vigor, mind, endurance, strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, and arcane. So vigor is what governs your HP. More points in vigor means more HP. So as you can see, if I increase vigor here, my HP goes from 396 to 414, right? So the more points I have in vigor, the more hit points I will have, which is great because you need a lot of hit points in this game. Do not ignore vigor. Always put points in it. And starting as astrologer is actually a slight disadvantage because it starts with some of the lowest vigor in the game. But obviously, it's made up by the fact that you don't really engage enemies in melee range. But still, you need vigor because sometimes it's just inevitable damage comes in. So keep upgrading vigor. For now, I'm going to stick upgrading vigor. Mind is what governs your FP, which is your mana points, focus points as it's called. I've been calling it mana throughout this video, but it's actually called focus. So the more focus you have, the more spells you can cast, right? So the blue bar that's below your health, below the health and stamina is what goes up, or between health and stamina, sorry. Endurance is what governs your stamina. Yeah, it's also important because if you run out of stamina, you cannot attack, and you cannot roll, you cannot do anything. Basically, you're just stuck there, and you'll take a hit. So this is also an important stat. These are your, I will say, these three are the three main primary stats that govern those three bars at the top, right? Your health, mana, and focus now, and endurance, right? So it's always a good idea to put points in here. And even then, I will say mind is probably the least important here because you already do have enough. 15 is a good number. As a caster, you eventually want to get to 20, 25, but for starters, this is really good. So don't put any more points in mind uh, for this build at least. Strength, dexterity are your damage stats. So strength, dexterity, intelligence, faith, and even arcane to a certain extent. These are all your damage stats. So this will always vary based on your build. So if you're playing a pure magic build, don't worry too much about any of the other stats, strength, dexterity, faith, or arcane. Intelligence is your primary damage stat, so just put points in there. However, if you come across a weapon, like I said, which needs some points in dexterity and strength, then you might need some points there. But largely speaking, you can pretty much ignore strength, dexterity, faith, and arcane, at least for this caster intelligence build. Obviously, there are magic builds that take advantage of faith over intelligence, but we are not playing that, so don't worry. So for now, I'm going to just put a point in vigor. That will give us some additional health. I hope this is clear. The stats are sort of confusing at first, but eventually it kind of makes sense. And the good thing is, if you know about this here in Elden Ring, all of this knowledge is very easily transferable to any other Souls like from Software. So any of the Dark Souls games, Bloodborne, they all have a very similar system, similar stats, similar scaling, similar concepts. So yeah, all of this knowledge is easily transferable there. So now that the basics are covered, now I want to show you where to get some of the best items for this class to start with, because there are two things that you really want to pick up at the start, and I'll show you how. This really requires a bit of trial and error, in a sense that you might die on the way, but it is worth it. Okay, so let me do this. Okay, let's go through this gate right here. And this sort of breaks the game a little bit, and you'll see some areas that you're not meant to see at the beginning, but trust me, it is worth it. It'll make your life a lot easier. So here, your instinct would be to, oh, let me fight everything, let me just fight everything, and then then try to get past. Don't do that. You can just ride past this. See, there's a big garrison there, but we just escaped unscathed. On my first playthrough, I tried to fight everything there, died 10 times, and was starting to get frustrated. But yeah, it's not required at all. Pick up this golden seed. Anytime you see this glowing plant, tree thing in the world, it means there's a golden seed nearby. So some enemies gave me chase. Don't worry. I will also unlock one grace right here before we proceed. And there's an item here and an NPC inside, which we will talk to in a bit. And talking to NPCs, okay?
Everyone who can.
Basically,
Only to have a
the way you want to approach talking to NPCs is that
willing to make me a Christian.
you have to talk to them until they start repeating things.
It's scary. I want to be like I'm nothing but fine. Can you take?
So this one gives us another ash, which is similar to the wolves. This is a jellyfish, also pretty good.
Someone braver than will be glad.
So as you can see, she has more to say because she's not repeated things yet.
Tell them I love and finally getting the help. It was a pleasure. Oh, tell them I love and finally get.
Yeah, see, now she started repeating things.
Tell them I love them and finally get.
So she's given us a small quest. Now quests in this game are a bit different to, well, I should not say bit, but a lot different from other RPGs and stuff, because you don't have a quest log, you don't have any real way of keeping track of things. So you just basically talk to people, and you'll eventually come across some solutions yourself, and then you'll immediately realize, oh, but hey, this seems like a part of that quest, and then I should probably do something here. So it's fine to miss quests, it's fine to fail quests also. Nothing is really going to stop you from finishing the game, really. All you will miss out on is some rewards, which again are things that you can live without for the most part. So here what I'm trying to do is get to a late, sort of a mid-game area, this grayed out area right here. So I'm going to stick to this path. We put a marker here at the end of this bridge, and I'll keep riding along. Ignore all enemies. Ignore all enemies that you see. You see there's another grace there. Just touch graces though, because they will be handy later on, because you'll have a checkpoint in case you die. There's an NPC here as well. You can talk to him. He'll just stay there. So don't worry too much about coming back here later. Or rather, don't worry too much about talking to him now. You can always come back later. See, there's another enemy camp here. Now you can fight them just like we did with the other camp. There's some loot in there. There's also night here. The same kind of night. I'm just riding past everything because, yeah, I just want to show you how to get those items here. Okay, before we proceed, I'll show you one more thing that you should probably do here. Just go up this path and there will be an NPC. Alexander the Jar.
Hello?
So talk to him.
I at least.
So agree to help.
Give me and I'll pop. Don't dally. Give it your all, I say.
So basically you just have to hit him from behind with a charged attack a few times. So charged attack is nothing but with your melee weapon, just hold the heavy attack button, RT, and you'll do a charged attack like this. And then he pops out. Talk to him.
Well,
Right? Yeah, he'll also repeat things.
beyond upon this tide doesn't no. I'm heading red me. I've heard that. I'm red me. I've
Yeah,
heard
see,
that.
that's it. Can go back to the path. Grace right here. And sometimes you can just touch the grace, you don't have to like rest at it always, and save some time. Because if you don't need to refill, then you don't need to rest. I'll pick up an item here, smithing stone. Smithing stones are used to basically upgrade your weapons. So right now I picked up smithing stone 1. Similarly, you have smithing stone 2, 3, 4, 5, and these basically, you know, always the higher tier your weapon is, the higher tier stones it will need. There's an NPC here. You could talk to him. He basically tells you to stay out of the village that's up there because there's a boss over there who we won't fight now. It's a pretty weak boss. Technically, you could fight him at this stage of the game, but I'm just trying to save some time. So what you see the person rowing the boat merrily, just basically ignore him for now. He is the boss that the NPC tells you to ignore. This is what we are doing now, but you could try and fight him as well. Okay, so now we are almost heading towards an area that is a bit more higher level than the starting one. Again, we are not going to fight anything over there. We're just there to get an item. There's an easier way to access this area, but I personally don't recommend this because this is a much safer way of getting there. The other way is quicker, but it will involve you dying a few times, so unless you want to get into that frustration. Plus, this will help you unlock a bunch of waypoints for later. So this is Caelid. It's like one of the main areas of the game, and it's pretty hellish, as you can see. Again, we don't want to spend too much time here. We'll just basically ride past everything. Just hit up those graces as and when we can. Stick to this path. Just follow the path that I'm taking. Don't worry too much about exploring anything else because the enemies here are extremely deadly. They will most likely kill you in one hit. Just avoid them as much as you can. Use the dodge, or rather the boost of the horse. If you press B, it will do this short boost, which you can sometimes use to dodge attacks. Again, the grace here. Touch it. As soon as that's done, summon your horse because enemies are likely chasing me. From here, head this way. Keep going. There's no path here, but just follow what I'm doing, and until you get back on the road. There's another grace here, which I'll not rest at, but at least unlock. Get torrent. Stick to the road. There will be a few patrolling enemies. Don't worry too much about them. Just stick to the sides of the road if you know there are enemies in the way. And there's another grace here. So as I said, this game is full of checkpoints. There are checkpoints literally everywhere. So you Even if you die somewhere, you won't like respawn too far from a checkpoint, as long as like you have unlocked it and rested at it at some point. Right? Okay, now we are here. Now this part of the map is still grayed out because we haven't picked up the let's say the fragment here, which you could actually do, but I will skip that for now. Just stick to this path. Okay, so you have to keep riding until you could pick up some of these items. These are like late game upgrade materials, but you could try and get them early. And this is the thing in the game. You can actually grab a lot of late game items very early. So once you're at the swamp and you will hit this part of the map which says Swamp of Aeonia, just keep riding this way and ignore these mosquitoes. And this is the part where we want to be at. Be careful of these geysers because they will one-shot you. Keep going. There is a grace here that you could basically unlock for now, and I would recommend doing that because if I die going ahead, I might have to start a bit further. Pick this up. Okay, ignore. Okay, I took a hit. It's fine. You can always summon the horse. Run away. Pick up this item here. This is a fairly nice summon, just like the wolves. It summons a dog who puts a really strong poison on enemies, which does a huge damage over time, which can be quite a lifesaver in some fights. Okay, now stick to this path here. Now we are actually very close to the items that we want to be grabbing. Until you reach this ruin here, Street of Sages Ruins. And then keep going until you reach this really small ruin up here. Okay, now go back here. Okay, you could get it from the front as well, but you have to kill some enemies. So I'll show you an easier way to do it. So just dismount and get it from here. So this is what we came here for, meteorite staff. And that's because the meteorite stuff is much better than the astrologer stuff. It does need 18 intelligence, but if you look at the scaling, it has an S scaling in intelligence, which is much higher than the astrologers. And this does a ton of damage at the start. But we need 18 intelligence and I'm getting hit in the face, so I'll just summon the horse. Heal up. Now we want to grab another item, which is in the ruin here, which can be somewhat tricky to get. Not impossible, but it might require you a few attempts if you do die. So we want to go into this basement here. It's very close to where the meteorite stuff is, so. And then it's in this chest. It is a spell called Rock Sling. Now the reason Rock Sling is really nice is because your default spell, the Glintstone Pebble, is pure magic damage. It only does magic damage and no physical damage. So if at some point you come across enemies that are resistant to magic damage, you will do very little damage against them, which is why you need a spell that does pure physical damage as well. And Rock Sling is excellent because it actually does a ton of damage. So like you saw there, I just got poisoned by these folks. Again, this is a pretty late game or mid game area, so right now it's a bit, these enemies are too tanky for us and we are also taking a lot more damage. So just heal up. Once those enemies are dead, we are done here. Just teleport back to the Church of LA, which was our safe haven from the start. And now we have really nice items. Now we need 18 intelligence for the stuff. So let me see. Oh, now that, okay,
Forgive
now
me.
that we went
To
ahead,
determine if you had, it seems my
she
wise
will actually
weapons
take
had
us
earned
to
had
the
your measure
game's
from
main
the very
hub.
stars I merely there is but one I can take you gathering place. Very well. Let my hand rest upon.
Not much you can do. You have to actually go once she tells you that. But it's fine. It's a nice thing because I can actually show that also. So the idea here is that once you progress a bit further in the game, like you take out your first main boss, or basically reach your first main boss, or reach a different area, then you get access to the round table hold, which is basically your hub area with NPCs, vendors, and blacksmiths. A bunch of people here who you can talk to. See, this is the guy who was near that village with that boss that we ignored. However, for now, we'll rest and basically upgrade our flask again because we picked up a golden seed, and we'll also level up our intelligence. We still need one more point. We need 200 or 300 more runes, which is fine. We'll get them eventually. So you could talk to all the people here. They have stuff to say. In here is also the blacksmith who upgrades our stuff. You have to talk to him once,
Loud, you're up.
and then you can use the smithing stones to upgrade your weapons. So you could upgrade your staff or your sword, and it depends. Some in the beginning the materials are a bit hard to come by, so I will, you know, advise you to pick and choose what you upgrade. And this other stuff here. So there was a blacksmith. There is this area here. Now there will be a comment that says Edge Lord. Pretty sure. Oh no, unfathomable thought ahead. But normally there's always a message that says Edgelord. But this guy is so edgy. Okay, there's a vendor here, and you can buy a few items from them at the start. But as the game progresses and as you bring more bell bearings, then there's items called bell bearings. Um, you can unlock more stuff here. So eventually you can also buy crafting materials from them if you give them enough bell bearings, which is very important, or rather let's just say useful. This part is closed at first, but will open up as you progress. And that's more or less it for the round table hold. There is an area down here. Do not jump down from here. Do not jump down. Because you will not die from the fall, but there will be a very tough enemy down there that you cannot beat at this level. So just don't do that. Okay, so now to come out of here, and I know some people actually do struggle with coming out of here, and that's what happened to me. How do I even leave this place? But yeah, you just open the map because the round table hold always shows up here, table of lost grace down here, whereas the rest of the world map is right here. So you can just go back to where you came from. So very quickly, I will show you one more thing and then we'll stop this because we have enough basics covered. What I will do though, in the meantime, is just make sure that we have enough ink to get to be able to equip the staff. Let's kill a few of these enemies. Oops, not enough range. And I should also show you how to equip spells, other spells that is, because we picked up rock sling, and it might be a good idea to also try that out. So rest at any grace, memorize spell. So we have another spell called Glintstone Arc, which is not that great if you ask me. However, rock sling actually needs 18 intelligence. I'll just equip it for now. I cannot use it for sure, but as soon as we have 18 int, we can use it. And let's see, you can also see how many runes you need to level up. So I still need 93 more runes, which is like probably 2 more enemies here. So I'll just quickly. Again, farming is not recommended. You could technically farm enemies and get levels and get really OP and stuff, but it's also boring, and you get enough runes in the game, so you don't need to actively go ahead and farm. Although there are some places in the game where there are really lucrative farming spots where you have enemies who drop a lot of runes and can be killed really quickly. So yeah, you could do that. So okay, I leveled up, and now we have 18 int. Right. Now I can probably equip the staff, and I can use rock sling as well. So to switch spells, press up on the D-pad. So you see, I pressed up, rock sling, switch between rock sling and glintstone table. Depends on what you're facing. So if you're facing something that has magic resistance, now the thing with rock sling is it is very powerful, but it has collision. So it basically summons these 3 rocks from the ground. But the rocks will collide with the environment, and sometimes you may lose some of the charges. So you have to make sure that you're clear so that all of the rocks hit the enemy. And it also has a bit of AoE splash damage. As you can see, 2 enemies died because of that one cast. I love this spell. This is really, really useful right up to the very end of the game. I even managed to kill the final boss of the game just by using rock sling on my first magic playthrough. Right. So now what I wanted to show was what you do after this. Right. So now that you have these weapons, this new staff and the spell. Okay, I'm gonna ignore this because there's an NPC here with a small quest. Right. You basically just roll into the bush.
Some you will just thank you. I was pushing, I ended up. Oh, when they, and so this is all I hope. Or I could then.
Okay.
Right.
Finish talking to him. Now, yeah, there are a few ways you can go. So if you see right here, this path here splits in 2, right? Basically, I would advise you do these things first. So first, after all the prep work is done, you explore this area in and around this part. So maybe this lake. This lake has a few surprises. I won't spoil them because there are some things that I would want you to experience first, and otherwise these games get boring if you know exactly what to expect. Then you have a path that goes this way, past this bridge right here. The bridge is right here. I'm looking at it. Right, so this path kind of splits up ahead into these 2 ways. So go this way first. Yeah, keep going this way. There's some stuff to find here, dungeons, NPCs, more graces to unlock and stuff. And then there's another path right here, which goes to another area called Weeping Peninsula. Lots of stuff to find there. So my advice is that you do those areas first. So the area right here and the area right here, down here. There is also a mini dungeon here, which is really nice to level up early on. That said, I also want to leave you with one last tip, which is sort of a cheat. Well, not really a cheat, but it's a way to really power level at the start. And there's a trick to it, really. You need a specific type of weapon which does bleeding damage, which is what we are going to go ahead and pick up. Ignore everything. Now, as a caster, I would say there's a ruin right here, and there's a basement, a mini boss to kill down there. Do that because you will run into an NPC who is sort of important for a magic build. She is also a magic vendor, and later on her quest is will lead you to some really good items for an int focus or a magic focused build. For now, I will just show you this one last thing. As you can see, I am again, I'm not engaging everything. There's a bunch of stuff, but I can easily just run past everything. So keep this in mind. Don't get frustrated. It's very easy to get frustrated in this game because if you're new to it, you will more or less die pretty often. Now I know this map pretty well. I know how the enemies react and stuff. So I've not died yet, but it does happen. So don't get discouraged. All that happens is you lose a few of your runes, and you can always get them back. So I just ran past that garrison over there. Yeah, if you zigzag around, you can basically avoid a lot of ranged attacks and stuff. It's pretty easy. NPC there, you could talk to her. I'm not going to do that for now. Also, another thing is at the beginning, you might want to also buy a torch from a vendor. Eventually, you can buy a lamp, but buying a torch helps because some caves are pretty dark and you cannot see. So you can always equip a torch in your right or left hand. And oh, a weapon that we want is right there. I just walked past it, sorry. Ignore these enemies. They're not aggro yet, so the morning star is what we are looking for. And the other thing that you can basically do is you can pick up stuff while you're on the horse, huh? So you don't have to get down for every single thing. You can always do this. See, items surrounded by enemies, but I can just ride into it and grab what I'm looking for, and I can just turn back and keep going, and eventually we'll stop giving chase. This is great, actually. So let me see if I can equip the mace. I cannot. What do I need? I need 12 dexterity. 12 strength for this. Which, well, I don't actually need 12 strength. What I could do is, for strength weapons, you can actually equip a weapon, and as the message said, you can two-hand it. So if I hold Y and I press RB, I can two-hand the weapon. So now you see that cross has disappeared, and I can actually use the weapon. Yeah, pretty handy. Now I have to do one more thing. Go back to the church. Two more things, basically. There's a reason why we picked up this weapon. And there's one more prep thing that you can do. Again, not necessary. You can skip all of this. You can just play normally. Just stick to the paths that I showed you and keep progressing from there. And once you are done with those two paths, right? Like you have explored enough, you feel confident, you have upgraded and stuff. Then you head towards where the graces are pointing, and the graces are pointing towards that castle up there, as if you can see, right there, above my head. That's Stormvale Castle. That's where you need to go. That's really the first proper dungeon of the game. It's a really elaborate dungeon. There are a couple of bosses. That's really your first major milestone of the game, and from there on you have a few more dungeons and areas, and that's how you progress. So the goal of the game is really to kill like major bosses, like four demigods. Is it four or five? It's actually three, and you kill those three demigods, and then you are able to progress into the second phase of the game. And from there, you basically do another big dungeon, and you progress to the third phase of the game, which is more or less like the finale. So this is what we came here for, the gold pickled foul foot. Oh, sorry. Okay, sorry, I don't want to fight you. Okay, picked up, and that's done. So I'll just wait. I'll just try and lose aggro. Okay, now I can fast travel. Now from here, go back to this grace that we had unlocked, Kalem Ruins, right, in Kaled. We're going to do something very cheeky. Stick to this path. Don't. If you go anywhere else, you're going to get slaughtered. So, yeah, just stick to this edge right here. Keep going towards this tower. You're in a even more higher level area now. So just be careful. Here, everything for sure will one-shot you. So do not engage anything. Just keep riding past. Stick to this path. There is a map fragment which you could pick up. Since there's nobody around, I'll pick it up. Yeah, don't get intimidated by the dragons. They look scary, but they won't immediately aggro on you. Just keep going past. Okay, just give them a nice wide. Yeah, just ignore them until you reach this big albino dragon right here. Okay, now I'm just gonna go a bit further, and don't worry about this dragon. She doesn't attack you. She just stays there. But before that, grab this grace. This is just in case we die for some reason, we don't have to come all the way. Now go here. Get down here. What we want to do here is kill this dragon basically. And before you do that, put the golden pickled foul foot in your inventory and just basically make sure it is selected. Don't use it at this point. And then start whacking this thing. It will take a long time to kill, okay? But you will do huge chunks of damage periodically because the bleed will get triggered. See, now it lost like almost 10% of its health. So you have to keep doing this, keep triggering that bleed, right? Now I won't show this whole thing because this will take a long time, but basically keep at it. It will take a few minutes, and as soon as the dragon dies, you'll hear a very telling sound, and it will start to fade away. As soon as you see that happen, use the gold pickle foul foot. Now what it does is gives you extra runes on enemy kills for 2 or 3 minutes, something like that. I think it's 3 minutes if I'm not mistaken. But the idea is that once it dies or is very close to dying, you use that pickled foul foot and get some extra runes. So after killing this dragon, it gives you 70,000 runes, but it also gives you like I think 30,000 extra if you use the foul foot, so you end up with 100k runes, which is a lot of runes at this stage of the game, which you can then go and level up, take your vigor to max, to really high number, and you can easily get to say something like level 35 or something right at the start. So you are what, 9 right now, but you can probably get to like level 30ish, 30 something, and you can get vigor up to 25, endurance up to 15, your intelligence as high as you want to take it, and so on. So that way you'll have a much easier time at it. And now while we are already here, let's do one more thing. This is a scary thing, and I might die here. But if you go into this fort, keep running, keep running, follow the exact path that I'm doing. Again, this is not necessary, but it will help you out a little bit in the beginning. Just go past everything. This is a very high level area. Everything here will kill you very easily. So ignore the poison. You might get poisoned, yeah, for sure. But you can use the flask. Grab the medallion from here. It is an important item which will come into play eventually. Jump down here. Here, what you want to do is keep running. There will be some enemies popping up. Ignore them. Jump, run, and drop down the second hole right here. Okay, I don't have the torch, but if you had the torch, it will be a little better. But go this way. Jump through this gap over here. This is a scary part. You'll get ambushed by rats. They might kill you, but jump down here. Grab this item right here and die to the rats. Because there's no way you can come out of here without dying. So what you picked up is a talisman, a sort of late game, mid game talisman. So talismans are like support slots which give you some additional bonuses, but they're very important since they make or break certain builds. And then you can equip your first talisman, this Radagon Source Seal. So what this says is greatly raises attributes, but also increases damage taken. So as you can see, it boosts your vigor, endurance, strength, dexterity, etc. And that way you get like so many levels at the cost of a little more damage taken. So equip this, but that way now see I can also wield this weapon with one hand, I think. Yeah, I can. Right? Yeah, so that's just free levels in addition to the levels that are given by the dragon, and now you should be really prepped and have a really good start. So again, important thing is you need this staff, you need those levels, you need the rock sling spell, and now you can pretty much start the game on a pretty relaxed note. And I guess that's it. This is very long, so I hope this helped, but this will help you get a really good start, and hopefully this went over some of the basics. But yeah, I think that's it. Thanks for listening. Bye.